Hey, what's up, everyone? How you guys doing? And welcome to episode 5 of the Real Estate Talk. I'm Abel Mensur.
This is Burhan Khan.
How you guys doing this week? What's up, Brian?
You tell me, Abel. How's your Saturday going so far?
Saturday's uneventful, but good, right?
Yeah.
Usually when you get some downtime, that's kind of a good thing, especially now because I'm getting ready to go out of town, so I'm trying to get everything completed before I leave. But I'm as a real estate agent, you're always not working. So,
and I think this is the best time of the year to take advantage to go out of town because school started.
Yeah,
and ticket prices actually go down.
That's true. Ticket prices go down. Hotel prices go down.
There you go.
Even gas prices go down. Usually summers when the gas prices are at the peak of it, right?
Well, it's not just that. So a lot of gas prices, food prices, other prices are going to start going down because everyone's expecting a Fed rate cut coming up in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So everyone needs to look out for that because with the Fed rate cut coming, mortgage rates are going to drop. Mm-hmm. And with mortgage rates dropping, buyers should come back into the market instead of continuously waiting into 2025,
Yeah, so that's going to be kind of like a hybrid kind of situation, right? Because usually the wintertime is slow for real estate, but you think the rates are going to drop in the wintertime and that's just going to heat up the market a little bit?
It will. So there's been a couple of reports that came out. The jobs report came out, and there have been a lot of job cuts from employers, from larger companies. Due to that, the Fed is way behind on cutting those rates. And with the rates not being cut as they were supposed to, we may see a recession. That's what everyone's saying. Mm-hmm. So with the upcoming rate cut, mortgage rates are going to fall. And with mortgage rates falling, what happens? The prices go up. Mm-hmm. So instead of just sitting on the sidelines saying, oh, hey, let me wait for the rates to drop to 5%, 4%, then I'll buy a house, you should buy a house now.
Because when those rates go down,
yeah,
the price goes up.
Exactly. And then if you buy the house now, you can refinance in 2025. Then you don't have to battle with 5 other buyers just to get that one house you really want.
So my question to you on that, we sell a lot of people on, hey, buy now, you can refinance when the rates go down. But it also costs money to refinance.
That's true. But here's the kicker to that. If you get the right mortgage lender, they'll have a stipulation in that loan estimate and closing disclosure and overall that mortgage contract that if you refinance with them, they won't charge you anything to refinance. That's why you have to read the fine print before you sign up with that mortgage lender.
So, again, we're not lenders, but we're in the market, so we kind of know a little bit. Yep. But a lot of times lenders, your original lender is not your original lender. They go and sell your loan. So how does that work if you're trying to refinance and they sold your loan?
So this is another thing a lot of homeowners, first-time home buyers don't know about. Whenever a mortgage lender is working with you, right, they make money on the front end and they make money on the back end. Mm. Buyers don't know that. Buyers just go in, blind, not knowing anything about all the costs associated when they're buying a house.
Yeah.
All they do is they read the print thinking, oh, I'm only being charged a 1% or 0.5% loan origination fee. That's all the money the lender's making. That's not true. They actually, when they take that loan, lenders usually package a bunch of loans associated with Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, and then they sell those loans to investors, and then they make money on top of that.
Yeah.
So the funny thing, know that.
Yeah, the buyer should. The funny thing, I think they only worry about what's my monthly payment.
Yeah.
Right? It's like
that's the crazy part because let's say, their rate is around 5.5% or 5% in today's market, right?
Yeah.
They're so excited, oh, my monthly payment's really low, but then they're getting ripped off on the closing costs and they're paying like 2 or 3 points.
Yeah.
Then they're not paying attention to that until the closing day comes. And we talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
People get so emotional and they're so excited or nervous that they're just going straight to signing the dotted line, and then they just do away with it.
So I guess my question to you, to circle it back, when we tell people, hey, go ahead and buy now because the price is going to be lower. Yes, your interest rate's a little higher, but you can always refinance. How does that process work for refinancing if they have to end up paying money or if their loan gets sold? What's the best way that a client can prepare themselves for when that happens? So if they go into mindset, okay, right now it's at a 6.5 interest rate. Once it gets down to 5 or 4 or 9 or whatever, I'm going to refinance. How would you recommend them to kind of attack that game plan in a sense?
So I would reach out to several different mortgage lenders. Two of the biggest monsters are Rocket Mortgage and United Wholesale Mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
They're billion-dollar companies,
Yeah.
$100 billion companies, as everyone probably knows. Reach out to them directly, because a lot of the mortgage brokers you work with, all they do is they package your application and then they resell it to them. But what if you reach out to them directly? You're actually saving the middleman, the broker, as they're called, and maybe they just give you a better deal all the way through.
All the way through, yeah, no, that makes sense. I guess I'm saying with the interest rates dropping, with the market kind of heating up in the winter, people should not hesitate if they want to get into the market or if they're looking to buy a home, instead of staying in that sideline and just waiting and waiting. Get in that market. If you find a home that you really like and you want to buy that home, go ahead and buy that home and figure out all the refinancing and everything now or when you have to, because if you do that now, at least you'll get in at a lower amount, and then you'll just be 1 year, 2 years into your loan to refinance, when rather than 10 years down the line and you're refinancing another 30 years or 15 years or however that works.
Correct. And the biggest thing is the amount of payments you're making, the monthly payment. You don't want most of it going to interest, even though it is tax deductible.
Mm-hmm.
By having a lower rate, the payment comes down, and most importantly, less of it goes towards interest.
Yeah.
And the payment, when it's broken down, everyone should know, you have the principal and interest, you have the taxes, insurance, and then you have the HOA. That's how your payment is always broken down.
Yeah.
And that's, again, as you mentioned, that's what everyone pays attention to.
Yeah. Which I guess that kind of transitions us into the topic of HOAs, right? So a lot of people can't avoid HOAs. Most new builds nowadays have an HOA or are associated with an HOA, unless I guess in my opinion, from what I see, a lot of them have HOAs. The older ones are more so without the HOAs. HOA fees are something that are just unavoidable, but a lot of people just look at their fees and they say, yeah, that's what it is. I have to pay $120 a month. But do they really look and see what that $120 is going for? What does your HOA do for you, you know?
So whenever you have a house with an HOA, you have to go through a couple things whenever you're purchasing the house. First and foremost, in the state of Virginia and Maryland, you have a certain time period where you can just back out of the contract.
Mm-hmm.
In Virginia, it's standard set to 3 days. But if you want more time, you can actually write down the contract and say, hey, I want 5 days, I want 7 days, whatever you want. You just have to put the writing in the contract to review those documents. And if you want an extension saying, hey, I need more time to read the bylaws, read the financials of the HOA, you can go ahead and do that. Secondly, when you read the HOA resale disclosures, make sure you go through thick and thin of what's written in there, because 99% of people don't read that.
Yeah.
They trust their agent, and unfortunately, sometimes agents don't even read those bylaws or financials of the HOA. And as you go through it, see what's in there, because if financially the health of the HOA is really bad, believe it or not, in the next few months or year or so, your HOA fee or condo association fee could spike up.
Mm.
And then, you're a year in and you're wondering, hey, why did my payment just go up?
Yeah. Do they have like grandfathered prices, or those prices just it's subject to change depending on what your bylaws are in the HOA?
So, unfortunately, I don't ever see an HOA fee being grandfathered in.
Yeah.
That's
it's like, we bought our house in 2000. We only paid $25 for HOA fees. There's no such thing as that.
There's no such thing. Yeah. I went through an experience with one of my clients where they bought a condo, and unfortunately, it was an apartment building. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, in the basement part of the apartment building, there was a bunch of mold that was detected a year after they moved in. Mm-hmm. And then they had to get the mold remediated. Unfortunately, it cost, around $40,000 to $50,000. And what are they going to do? They're going to spike up the condo fee for every single member of the building.
So there's actually a difference between condo fees and HOA fees, right? So a condo fees is usually apartment buildings or condominium style housing, and HOAs are usually townhomes, single family homes, or like gated communities, right? Or is you can't have a single family home and have condo fees, or can you do that?
So that's a great question, Abel, and it's very strange. It usually comes down to whoever built the house.
Yeah.
I've seen houses that are structured as townhouses, but then they have condo fees and HOA fees.
Yeah.
And then I've seen single family houses with HOA fees. I've seen crazier things, but at the end of the day, it comes to whoever built the community. They make the call, and they design exactly how the fees are structured.
Yeah. So I feel like condo fees are more so because it's one big building with a bunch of different units in that big building. So you guys share all the expenses that relate to the building, right? So those fees, so the maintenance of the grass, or the maintenance of the elevator, or whatever is in that condo, versus an HOA. Each individual home is, if something breaks down, the whole HOA doesn't kind of cover those costs, just that single homeowner. But if it's in a community and it's a common area, then that's where those condo fees go to. So a lot of people need to know what exactly their HOA pays for and how that is governed. Go to those meetings. They have those meetings every month or every 2 months, or however your HOA does it. But I highly advise people to know, hey, what am I paying for? What am I able to get, right?
Correct. And you brought up a great term, common area maintenance. HOA and condo fees, they're going to do as much as they can in the bylaws to trick everyone. Mm-hmm. So they have this term, it's called CAM charges. So everyone's going to say, what does CAM mean? We don't know what the term CAM means. Right?
Yeah.
We're all confused. It just means common area maintenance. They're going to put all these other structures in the bylaws and the rules and regulations just to confuse all of us. That's why you have to talk to your agent. If you want to go as far as hiring an attorney, unfortunately, they're going to charge you a lot, but you have to make sure you understand what you're getting into. Otherwise, you're just blinded, and worst case scenario, your HOA or condo fees are going to spike up.
Exactly. And the participating in the HOA, because once you become a member of that property, or you own that property and it's in the HOA, you have a vote.
Correct.
You have a voice, in a sense, to voice your opinion. To even the bylaws are interchangeable as well too. Like if you have certain amount of signatures, or however that process goes, you can change those rules or those regulations or those fees. You can eliminate fees. It's kind of like a governing body. You have your governing body with the board, that people that are elected into the board, then they, how does that work? When you elect people into the board, do they make the decisions, or does everything that happens have to be voted upon?
So usually you have a board. In my community, I have a board I live in a townhouse with my family, mm-hmm. and we have a certain HOA. It's a small HOA community, and we have a board. It's usually elected, and then whenever we have changes, we usually have the board vote on it. The HOA usually covers the trash and common area maintenance.
Yeah.
But before I purchased the house, I made sure that I reviewed all the bylaws, reviewed the financials, and reviewed everything in general. One thing I like about my HOA, it's a small community. It's not a giant HOA, mm-hmm. because the problem with the giant HOAs is they're a lot more stingy when it comes upon charging you fees, mm-hmm. and getting on you whenever the payment is due. I'm dealing, as far as property management is concerned, I'm dealing with some of my clients that are owners for those properties. Mm-hmm. What they're currently going through is the owners of the HOA, they're really hitting them with all these late fees that don't even make sense.
Yeah.
And let's say they don't mow the lawn for just a week, then they're just going to throw these fees at them.
Yeah.
And you're starting to wonder exactly where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Recently, I had a tenant that I just got into one of the properties for my client, and then their car was towed. The reason was the HOA fee wasn't paid. And small things like that go a long way. Mm-hmm. So you really have to look at exactly what you're getting into before you purchase the townhouse or single family house or condo by just reading upon the bylaws of the HOA.
Yeah. So it's funny because our community, it's a bigger community. It's single family homes, and our HOA covers a lot of like our trash, and in the common area we have like a swimming pool and a clubhouse and things like that, and that's covered. But that's pretty much it. I mean, there's other things in the bylaws that you can look at that are if something major was to happen. But the other day I said, hey, I have like a pothole in front of my cul-de-sac. Like, what do I get the HOA to fix this? How does that go? And like, no, that's still with the county. You have to reach out to the county and they should be able to take care of it. So it's crucial to kind of know what you're paying for each month, right? So like you said, you're the HOA, one of the HOAs you manage, they fine you for not cutting your grass. Some HOAs may have grass maintenance included in their HOA fees.
And that's the funny part, because you wonder if, let's say an HOA has, hundreds of houses in the community, multiply that by $100 fee.
Yeah.
That ends up being tens of thousands in revenue.
Yeah.
Where's all that money going? You start to wonder, right?
Yeah.
So cutting the grass shouldn't cost that much, right?
Yeah.
You just hire someone, and lawn maintenance is very cheap, right?
Yeah.
So getting someone on a landscaping contract shouldn't cost that much. So that's why you just have to look at these small things. And if you're buying a house and you get the HOA resale package, make sure you do your due diligence and investigate exactly what's going on with that homeowners association or condo association and see if it makes financial sense for you. Even if you love the house, if you get in and then you get a headache over the HOA, you're going to regret it.
Also, you got to keep in mind too. So you can't paint the house color like anything that you want to do to the exterior of your home. You have to get an approval from the board or from the governing body to give you the okay to do that. Now, I don't know how it works for inside the house. I think you are able to do whatever you want inside your home. But if it's the exterior of your home, or if you want to add something on, or if you want to add a fence, anything that you need to do that's visual, that's not to the aesthetics of what that HOA community is trying to do, you have to get approvals for.
Correct.
And they can deny you to do certain things. So that's the annoying part about an HOA is that. But then the positive side of it is your property value, or the curb appeal of your property will be pretty stagnant, right? So if you have a governing body that is monitoring your grass cutting, keeping up with the painting of the house, if you need to paint it periodically and things like that, they're making sure that your neighbor is looking just as good as yours, and vice versa, so that value can stay stagnant and growing, rather than losing value or kind of bringing the community down in a sense, right?
Correct.
The horrible things about not being in a HOA, if you're not in a HOA, you have neighbor one and neighbor two. Now, neighbor one got an RV in front of his house. He's got 3 or 4 unworking cars just sitting in his yard. He cuts his grass maybe once every 2 months, and your house is well kept and it looks really nice, but you don't have no way to get that person to keep up with their thing because they're not part of an HOA, or he can do as he wants within his property line.
That's a great point, Abel. Whenever I'm showing properties to potential buyers, let's say we go to a certain community, in Woodbridge or Stafford or anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And it's surrounded by trees. Usually they phrase that, oh, this property's in the jungle.
Yeah.
That's what they usually say, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it doesn't have an HOA, but they wouldn't feel comfortable living over there. But when you have a bunch of townhouses, they feel safe because it's in a community. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does have an HOA, but at least they feel more comfortable because their neighbor will always have their back, and they'll have their neighbor's back, just in case something crazy happens.
And also just on a personal, like for me, like I don't want to come to my house every day and see like all these cars in the front yard being worked on, and an RV that's 10, 20 years old, just sitting there. Like, aesthetics of the house matters to me, right? So I want to come and I want some peace when I see the surroundings of where I live, where I lay my head. So I'm all for HOAs. I'm just for monitor your HOA, know exactly what you're paying for, and kind of figure out, all right, where's this money going and how can I improve on it?
Exactly. But going back to the bylaws, so certain HOAs don't allow certain things. One of the classics I deal with, especially when I have investors, is certain HOAs do not allow Airbnb. So let's say you're buying a house as an investor and your goal is to Airbnb the property. Believe it or not, more times than not, HOAs will not allow Airbnbs because they just don't want different people coming in every day to that house.
Or even house hacking. So if you wanted to rent out your basement, and the bylaws might say, hey, you can't subdivide your home to rent out.
Correct.
So that can be something that if you were looking to make a little extra money, you're not able to, right?
Exactly. So certain times HOAs don't allow that either. Worst case, and I've heard this before, certain HOAs do not even allow you to lease the property. If you buy it, you have to move in. And so, worst case scenario, it rarely happens, but there are certain communities that don't allow rentals in the community. If you buy it, you have to be the primary homeowner, and you have to live inside the property.
Yeah, which can get kind of annoying, right? If you wanted to grow your portfolio or that house just is not enough house for you, so you need to move into a bigger house, but you don't want to sell that house and your HOA doesn't allow it. Now, for argument purposes, you can always fight that. You can always. It's not like, oh, the HOA doesn't allow it, so you can't do it, right? So I know a story of one in my community that I just heard of. There was a gentleman that had a swing in front of his house, and the HOA didn't want that swing there, or however that work goes. This was before I moved in there, but he went all the way to the court, sued him, and won the case. And now, just for kicks and giggles, even though his kids are grown, he still leaves that swing there just as a sign of I won, right? So it's always you can always fight certain. Those rules are not forever standing. I guess you can always kind of change it around and challenge those guidelines.
And that's a great point, Abel. Most people don't know this, but if you feel like the HOA is bullying you, and bigger HOAs will do that. If you have a smaller community, smaller HOA, it's usually family friendly, like the one I live in. But bigger HOAs, they will tend to bully you. What they'll do is they'll hit you with these ridiculous late fees, and then if you don't pay, after a few months, what they do is they take you to court.
Yeah.
They'll send, they'll send a subpoena. They'll post it to your property and set up a court date. But what happens if it's the other way around? What if you feel like, you're being bullied for a ridiculous reason? You can actually go to court or go as far as suing them, especially if you get members of the community together. Most people don't do that. They feel like they need to get an attorney. For small claims, you don't have to. Just get the members of your community together, go to the local county courthouse, and then place a claim. And then you, more times than not, believe it or not, you may be able to win. Just try.
Yeah. So why do you think the trend is in these newer builds or newer properties or newer communities? It seems like more so than not they have an HOA.
So
have you noticed that?
I've noticed that. There could be multiple reasons. As we said before, the whole concept of HOA, and when it started hundreds of years ago, it was for community protection. Like the example you brought up, you don't want to move into, the forest or the jungle with a bunch of RVs, and then one night someone's going to knock on your door at 1 a.m. asking for sugar, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to move into that kind of environment. You want a safe community where your neighbors will have your back and help each other out. That was the concept. However, I think the newer builds have turned it into a profit-making scheme where they pretty much have a permanent HOA place forever, and then they start monopolizing it. That's my personal opinion.
But
may be wrong.
how does so do they make it to where a certain manager, like where does the profit come in as far as who manages it, who like is that a does the HOA choose who manages that area, who works, what contractors are in there, and things of that nature?
They do. So the HOA makes all the decisions. They choose which contractors, for example, landscaping in the common areas. HOA selects for any exterior maintenance if it's required per the bylaws. HOA picks. HOA pretty much, or condo association, makes all the decisions.
Yeah.
And then let's say that you're looking at the balance sheet and the income statement of the HOA. They have the revenues, they have the expenses. Well, where's all the leftovers going?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as all the community members, they don't get as much of a say unless you get enough of the community members together.
Yeah. No, that's a very interesting thing, because it's like, how does that work? So a developer will develop a community, but once it's all filled in, this is kind of like a way for them to continue still making money off that community, in a sense.
In a sense, yeah. That's so all of us, we want to have income streams forever, right?
Yeah.
We want, just like if you have a rental property, then the rental property is an income stream until you sell the rental property,
Yeah.
right? So this is just another way they came up with a stream of income. They made the scheme where they create an HOA or a condo association to have a permanent way to have income coming in.
Yeah, that's interesting. That I can see how that can quickly become a business, but it's just important that you get involved. You like people. It's funny because a lot of my clients or people that I've dealt with that join into an HOA community, and I send them the bylaws or the HOA documents before they move in.
Resale disclosure.
Yeah, they don't look at it. I mean, they'll skim through it, and honestly, I'm a victim of that too. Like I couple properties, I didn't look thoroughly into the HOA bylaws. Like I was just like, okay, well, I'm doing better now. Like I fall victim of like, all right, what's my HOA fee each month? Like I just know I have to pay that, but then I need to ask those questions. Like, what is my HOA paying? Like,
well, let me ask you a question, Abel. At the closing table, how big was the closing package? It was like hundreds of pages.
yeah,
right? And you have such a short time. Is anyone actually going to read through all that?
and that's what I'm saying. So it's like people are blindly going, but then it gets to the point. It's like, is my realtor supposed to take all that time and read everything? Technically, yes, he should be. A good realtor will read through it and make sure that you understand everything that is in that document and what you're getting into, because that's part of the job requirement. But at the same time, it's like, as an owner, you should know where your money is going, right?
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, again, 99% of owners, they don't pay attention. They just look at what's that dollar amount of the fee.
Exactly.
And so, fortunately, a majority of owners do care of what's covered.
Yeah.
They do ask what's covered. The trash, is the water covered? What else is covered? Any of the utilities covered? They do ask that question. But again, they don't read all the bylaws, and they don't actually look at the budget, the financials. Because if the HOA has a lot of liabilities, has a lot of expenses, and they're doing poor financially, that fee's gonna go up.
Yeah.
So you have to look at that.
And that's I guess that's kind of like the scariest thing, because it's like, do they cap how much it can go up? Do they go and say, all right, you're paying $100 now, and then 3 years later it's like, okay, we're raising the HOA fees to $150, or we're raising it to $300. Like, you have to know what they can and cannot do, because then if enough people get together and say, no, we're not going to pay, then they can even vote to eliminate themselves from the HOA or not have an HOA at all. Is that correct?
Well, think of it this way. You know how all of us in America are paying more for gas, paying more for food, paying more in general for everything over the last 3 years?
Yeah.
Right? Could we do anything to stop those price increases? No, right? So this is similar, and you have to look at the financials to see if you have a good community doing a good job of budgeting everything.
Yeah.
And if they do a great job of taking care of the budget as far as CAM charges, as far as landscaping, as far as the other overall expenses, then you won't see ridiculous price surges in the HOA or condo fees. But if they're not, then one of two things is going on. Either they're doing such a poor job of taking care of the budget, or all that money is going to them for their pockets. And in return, what happens of the poor job or them getting the money for themselves is you pay more as a community member.
Yeah, that's true. So I guess you can do one of two things. You can go through the whole document and read it, or you can have, you sit down with your realtor and kind of go through those documents and make sure that, you understand what you're paying for, or pay a lawyer to read that legal.
Yeah, and it's worth it. And I know it may take 1, 2, maybe even 3 hours, depending on how big those documents are, how many pages it is. But it's definitely worth it, because later, if you don't read it, and then 6 months to a year, if the prices go up, let's say you're complaining, well, whose fault was it? It's just like, not doing a home inspection, and then later there's a huge leak coming from the roof. Well, whose fault was that?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I just noticed the trend in HOAs and more communities that are being built have HOAs in it. And I remember when I was younger, it used to be kind of like, oh, the wealthier side of the communities or the wealthier side of the city had HOAs or condo fees, and the older or low income side didn't really have that. But nowadays it seems like more and more, because even if you're renting into an apartment, you're paying into some sort of they call it an amenities fee, or and that's to allow you to use the swimming pool, the weight room, and all that. So that's like another expense that you'd pay outside of your rent. When growing up, I used to remember living in an apartment. Your rent was your rent. You didn't have an amenity fee. So it's just more and more of a business nowadays, right?
Correct. And that goes back to, let's say you're renting and you have a lease. People don't read that sometimes either. They just look at, what the lease rate is.
Yeah.
But then what if on page 6 or 7 they have these other fees, hidden costs structured in?
Yeah.
So you have to read all that. But again, it goes back to originally what we said. People don't read the fine print.
Yeah.
So as long as you read that and look at the numbers.
Look at that, make them make sense, because sometimes that can be what gets you over the top, right? If you're thinking, oh yeah, my mortgage is $3,200, but your HOA fees or condo fees is $500 to $200, that could put you over budget.
Yeah, and what's crazy is here in the upper parts of Northern Virginia, like Arlington and even DC, guess how high those HOA and condo fees are going?
Oh, I've seen some for $1,200, $2,000.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous.
Why do you think that is?
Yeah, high demand. I mean, what do they offer that's different from somewhere that's offering $100? Like we don't know, but it's. You can't say it's because of higher taxes, but I mean, do they have more amenities?
They do have some nice amenities. Sometimes utilities are all covered. So that's why you really have to look. And believe it or not, some buyers want to go for that.
Yeah.
Because
less of a headache for them.
Less of a headache. They give CAM. They cover common area maintenance. All the utilities, electricity, water, gas is covered in it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the price of the property is actually cheaper compared to other properties where you have to pay everything.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm paying $2,000 for condo fees, they better send somebody once a week to clean my condo.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. One other thing a lot of buyers fail to look at, they look at that high condo fee, right?
Yeah.
Or high HOA fee, and they just run away from it.
Mm-hmm.
But what if I told you the taxes on that same condo are extremely low compared to other properties in the same area?
Exactly.
Would you consider it?
Yeah, that would. I mean, I've had clients that run away from because the condo fee is high, and don't take the time to. And I try to explain to them like, okay, well, it's high, but they're covering this, and this. And then, like you said, good point. The taxes on this is significantly lower than what you would pay elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And again, people don't take the time to just do a little extra research, analysis, and do their due diligence to see why that is.
Yeah.
So as long as you do that, maybe you can actually discover what's going on with that high condo fee.
So we touched on, the advantages of having a condo fee. So when you don't go with a condo fee, let's dig deeper into that. So if you buy a property that doesn't have any condo fees, you're free to paint it pink, blue, orange, whatever color you want to paint your house. Yep. Now, as far as maintenance of like your lawn and the other parts where we were talking about having like cars in your front yard and things like that, there are some places that can do that. Like you might be able to put it in your backyard, but then at that point the county and the city starts to kind of police those things as well too. So you do have some sort of pushback as far as, you can paint it whatever color you want, but as far as the maintenance of your lawn and the maintenance of your yard and what you can have in the front yard and things like that, those things do get policed. So don't think that you're going to be like, oh, there's no HOA fee, I can do whatever I want with that. The city will just send you a warning. And then if you don't alleviate that warning, then they'll hit you with a fine. And those fines can range from $200 to $2,000, depending on what the fine is.
So have you ever heard of like those Karens, the ones that go around and call the county and,
people do that all the time, yeah.
People do that a lot.
Yeah.
So if you don't have an HOA, it's great in the respect that, you don't have anyone, leaving those notes on your door, saying you didn't mow the lawn, so we're fining you. But in retrospect, you don't have a community to take care of you.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't mow your lawn and your grass comes to a certain point, what's going to probably happen is the police aren't going to come just investigate your house. That usually doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But if someone drives by, a Karen specifically, they're going to call the county, and then a sheriff's going to come by and just post a note on your door. You have to take care of it.
Yeah.
And the county's going to start taking over and slowly sending you fines.
So in one of my out-of-state investment properties, that happened to me. So I have a fence. It's in the backyard. I have a fence that I put up, and right behind the fence, that plot of land is still mine as well too. So grass grows right there and bushes grow right there, and it's an alleyway, and the bushes got to an extent, and they sent me a letter and said, hey, if you don't cut those bushes by the time we pass by again, we're gonna fine you.
Yeah.
And I was kind of irritated because I was like, well, I put the fence up, so like, the city or somebody should come through and but I still owned a chunk, maybe 2-3 feet of that land where bushes were growing, so I had to take care of that. So that's the reason why I brought that up. But also in that same property, it's not in a HOA or anything. The next door neighbor has a swing set in front of their house, which is like annoying. So I'm like, somebody can drive by and see that swing set and be like, why are those swing sets in front of the house? And that can, for me, it's an eyesore. So I'm like, I look at it as like, okay, the value of the home, like it's going to bring the value of the home. Like people look at, because a lot of people, when they go to buy homes, they don't just look at that specific home that they're buying. They like to see what's next door and in front of them, next to them, because essentially they want it to be comfortable for them, right?
Correct. They want everything. As you said, when people drive by the house, they don't just look at that house. They want to see what's in the neighborhood. So if the next door neighbor, they see a bunch of RVs, they see a bunch of parties going on every day.
Yeah.
Then they're going to say, oh, no, I don't want to live here.
Exactly.
Because,
exactly.
They'll go to sleep, and at midnight they can't go to sleep because there are parties going on. And on top of that, they got RVs there.
Yeah.
So that's why buyers always look for everything in the community.
Yeah. So I guess to circle it back and kind of end this portion of it, HOAs can be good, but you got to know what they can do and cannot do.
Correct.
And not being in an HOA, yes, it takes away a monthly expense, but it can be an eyesore if your neighbor doesn't do the things that you like to do in your home.
Correct.
But then it doesn't give you free range to do whatever you want. The county and the city can still police you to keep up with certain maintenance, right?
Yep, exactly. And keep in mind, even though certain HOAs, and that's why you have to read the bylaws and read the whole package of what's included. Certain HOAs can be great. What if it comes with the pool? What if it comes with, a tennis club? What if it comes with all these other amenities and all you have to do is pay $100 a month?
Yeah.
You don't. A lot of people in certain communities don't take advantage of that. They just pay the $100, move in, never go to the pool.
Yeah,
You know?
that's very true. All right. So on that note, we're just gonna go ahead and end this show here. That was kind of like our 2 cents with HOAs and how they work. And if you need any more tips or just want to know a little bit more information, don't hesitate to DM us or hit us in the comment section, and we can go ahead and help you out. I'm Abel.
This is Burhan.
And this is H2IL Properties. You guys have a good one.